Hi guys, happy Thursday. Today we are going to take what we've learned about poetry so far and kind of put it together. Today we're going to focus on the theme, the topic and the theme of poetry. So we're going to take everything from figurative language and structure and types of poetry and kind of put that together to come up with what is the author trying to say? What is the poet? What is the purpose for writing this poem? So we're going to be looking at strategies and ways to do that today. Let me move this up here. Okay. So poetry, topic, and theme. So our essential question, how do I use the elements of figurative language to understand poetry? So basically, understanding it would be being able to come up with what the author is trying to teach us, okay? So that's the whole purpose. So first of all, let's kind of talk about the differences between a topic and a theme because they're very different. So the topic is just the general subject of the poem, and it answers the basic questions like who, what, when, where, how, or why. So, you're going to see a topic is usually one or two words, and that's it. That's just that overall subject of what the poem's about, okay? And then the theme, on the other hand, is the life lesson that can be learned from the poem. That's the overall message, okay? So that is going to be more of a sentence, not a one or two word answer. So keep that in mind as we go through this example here today. Poets and other writers develop themes to express their ideas about life or human nature. And remember, themes are broad. They're not specific. A lot of times they're generalizations, and they apply to everyone, not just to one person. Poets often have opinions on life, death, loneliness, sadness, hope, love, and they write about these things. And then that's where the messages come from. So here it says that theme must be expressed in a full sentence because it's a message about life. So here's some examples. If a poet wants to send a message about loneliness, she could say, loneliness is important to the creative process, okay? So that would be a whole theme. She could also say, oops, my slides want to change. There we go. Or loneliness is the worst feeling in the world. That would also be an example of a theme. All right, so let's look at a couple of others. If a poet wants to send the message about hope, he could say, hope gets us through our darkest of times, or hope makes life bearable. Okay, you see how those are complete statements and they're very broad. They're not saying, hope makes my life bearable, or there's not saying hope makes the poet's life bearable. It's a broad statement, okay? All right, so this is Langston Hughes, and if you read the poem in class, April Rain Song, that is the author of that poem. A common theme in his poetry is the struggle with racism because he lived during a time when this impacted his life. All right, so we are going to see some more of Langston Hughes' poetry in the next couple of days. And so keep that in mind as you read his poetry, that was, a big issue at the time, a social issue. So now we're going to talk about how to determine the theme in a poem. Right? So there's some steps and some questions you can ask yourself. So ask yourself, are there any problems? If there are problems, how did they get solved, if they get solved? Okay. What words in the poem stand out or seem important to the poet? Are there any people in the poem? What happens to them? Where does the poem take place? Is there any figurative language? And what is that figurative language trying to say? All right, so this is a Langston Hughes poem. It's called I Too Sing America. I'm going to read it out loud, and then I'm going to kind of walk through the graphic organizer with you, and you can you can fill out the attached note sheet as I do this, so you can pause the video and type in the notes so that you have a really good example of how you are to determine the topic and the theme of a poem, okay? So this is called I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh, and I eat well, and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Okay, so this is the graphic organizer that you're going to use that will help you to determine the topic and the theme. So these are those questions that you're going to ask yourself. So what are the problems in that poem? Well, if you can recall, as I read that poem, the poet was not allowed to eat in the kitchen, or he was not allowed to eat with the guests when they came. So the poet has to eat in the kitchen when company comes, okay? What words stand out to you? Well, the words, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed, okay? And I too am America, stand out to me, okay? Those are kind of important words to this poem and kind of are really how this author feels about this issue. And emotions that are associated with these words are sadness or frustration. You know, you can see here that the author is sad or frustrated because he has to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But he's also saying that someday they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed that he too is America. Okay, so he's showing his frustration and sadness. Where does the poem take place? At a home in America. And of course, it doesn't ask when, but we know this is, in the past, when racism was more prevalent maybe than it is today. What is the figurative language in the poem saying? So we have, I am the darker brother. So that's basically saying I'm a black man, and I too am America. A person that's really a metaphor, right? I too am America, but it is saying that he's an American and he should be treated that way. That's what that metaphor means. What is the poem's topic? Well, remember, the topic is only one or two little words. So the topic here is maybe mistreatment or racism. Okay, he is being mistreated here, not being able to come out with the company and eat with the company when the company comes to the house. Also, just being treated differently because of the color of his skin, which is racism. Okay. Last step. What is the poem's theme? So after we decide all of these things, it can really help us to decide, okay, what is this message that the poet is trying to get across to us? And we know it's going to have something to do with mistreatment or racism. Okay. And so let's try to think about how this poet thinks about that. And he's saying, like, don't let mistreatment or racism define you. Because he says in the poem, let me see if I can go back here a slide. He says in the poem, tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Okay? And he says, nobody will dare to say to me, eat in the kitchen then. And then they'll be ashamed, right? Okay. I too am America. So the message the author wants to give us here is don't let mistreatment or racism define you. Okay. You're still important. You're still an American. Okay. So act that way. All right. All right. So hopefully this is going to help you in order to do your own poems. So let's take a look here. The assessment prompt that you're going to complete today, which is right on this document. You have two new poems. Shel Silverstein writes No Difference, and Langston Hughes, Dream a World. So you're going to want to make sure that you read these poems thoroughly. You will be filling out graphic organizers to determine the topic and theme of each of these poems. And then when you're finished, you're going to be kind of looking at the similarities between these poems. Are they similar? Okay. And if so, in what way are they similar? All right. So, hopefully you'll be able to work through these, refer back to this video if you have any questions or if you need to, update your note sheet. But you should have the example that we did together. This one here, I Too Sing America, should be completed in your note sheet, as well as once you turn this in, you should also have these 2 graphic organizers filled out, one for No Difference, one for Dream a World, sorry, and then this tiny little question on the very end. And just making sure that you submit that then through Schoology. All right, please reach out to me if you have any questions. We're going to continue to work with theme tomorrow. We're going to practice with that for a little while because themes are difficult sometimes to grasp. All right, so guys, have a great day and I'll see you soon.